Welcome to the WangHiro podcast, where we answer Malaysians' burning questions about personal finance with fact-based answers. Most of us have heard about Warren Buffett, but how many of you know of a value investor named Li Lu? Personally, I only knew of Li Lu a few weeks ago when I read a headline which read, Charlie Munger invested nearly 90 million of his family fortune with Li Lu. The Chinese Warren Buffett has turned it into 400 million. But Li Lu is actually no stranger in the world of value investing. When I asked John about him, John was surprised I didn't know about him. So I told him it's quite likely that most people don't. Why don't we dedicate an episode to his history and investing style? Hence, we are launching today a new series called Hidden Investors Among Us, where we uncover the stories and investing journeys of investors that have achieved great success but may not be well known in our part of the world. The first investor in this series is Li Lu.
So Li Lu definitely gets less publicity compared to Warren Buffett. I think most people who are not in the industry have very unlikely heard of him. Only people who, if you go and search for videos on Li Lu, are definitely not in a million view kind of range. Not even 100,000 views kind of range. Definitely not, right?
Oh.
Yeah, but I would argue his investing prowess, his clarity of thinking, are on par with some of the greatest of our time. To be honest, yeah. I mean, I follow a lot of different, even boutique hedge fund managers that most people have never heard of. We even have a Malaysian one, but he closed his fund already. His name is called Yen Liao. We could probably cover him the next one.
Yen Liao.
Yeah, Yen Liao, Aravat Capital, right? Yeah, so you've mentioned it earlier. 88 million flipped to 400. Maybe what do you have to say to that? I mean, were you surprised when you saw that?
Very surprised. I think what surprised me most was seeing that Charlie Munger actually put money in him. As I know, that's not their style, right? Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, they don't put money into other funds. So most fund managers don't do that, right? They don't put their money into another fund. Why do that when you're already the fund manager?
Correct.
But that shocks me a little bit. The first thing was like, how did it happen? There must be some level of trust or what actually like created this deal, to happen. And the second thing was obviously the value, right? 90 million to 400 million. That's quite a big flip, you see.
Yeah.
So even if you calculate it year on year, that's like a pretty good CAGR. I believe. I haven't seen the figures, but I mean, it has made headlines. It should be quite significant, right? So that were two key points that really baffled me. And okay, the third one was the reference to Warren Buffett, the Asian Warren Buffett. Right? So why do they call him that? What are the similarities and differences between their investing styles?
Understand. Yeah, I think definitely just the headline alone makes you, and even better, I like the one that you said, that Charlie Munger. By the way, Charlie Munger is a super brilliant guy. Super brilliant. Can you imagine even Warren Buffett credits him for teaching him? I will argue in terms of mental intellect, right? Charlie sometimes is sharper than Warren, right? And having this guy give money to someone else he thinks is smarter than him. Can you imagine? So that's the signaling that he has given, right? Okay. So some insights how it happened. Actually, Charlie Munger and Buffett, right? Their circle of people around them. Actually, there's another investor called Monish Prabhai, also quite close to them one actually. Monish Prabhai, Guy Spear, a few of them, right? But Charlie Munger was being a long-time partner of Berkshire Hathaway. They actually met during Thanksgiving in 2003. Okay, so Li Lu met Charlie Munger Thanksgiving 2003. Have been friends. Li Lu actually transformed into a hedge fund long only. So what does long only means? Usually hedge funds, they are called a hedge is because they buy with the hopes that the share price go up, but they also do short to hedge their position. That means they buy with the hopes that some of these companies actually fall in share price. So that's why it's called a hedge fund, because they hedge long and they're short.
I was always wondering, like, what were they hedging against?
So that's why when they tell you I'm a long only hedge fund, so that's what it means. They only buy with the upside. But usually if they tell you hedge fund, it's always a hedge long and short. Long and short position. So they'll tell you like I'm a long only, I'm a long short, they'll tell you the strategy, right? So Lilu is only long only, okay? And some of the
Sorry to interrupt you there, but if it's a long only, like how do you hedge?
there's
Is
no
a
hedge,
hedge no hedge lah? Then
no
is it
hedge,
still a hedge then? It's not.
yeah, but
So is it still?
they call it a fund lah. I mean, it's like
Oh, okay
yeah,
lah.
they
Not
still
a hedge
call it a
anymore lah. Okay.
hedge fund. Is that they still have the option, but
All right, right.
yeah, they still
Oh,
have the
okay.
option.
So there is the option of doing it, but he's not gonna exercise that option. Got it.
Correct. Yeah. So interesting how the names of all
Yeah,
all the names got meaning one. It's just that sometimes we are ignorant to the meaning. Actually, for me, is I've always had the same question like you. Why do they call it a hitch? Then after you read more and more, then you understand.
historical, right? Historical.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. So Lilu's fund is a global mandate. He can buy anything anywhere in the world, not just confined to the US. Whereas when when Warren actually started out, he was very US focused. Actually, one of his first investments for Warren outside of the US was actually an Israeli company called Iskar. It stands for Israeli Metal Company, right? But very rarely does Warren actually invests outside of the US because I'm aligned to him. The biggest capitalist system in the world today and the one most successful is actually in the US markets, right? But Lilu, because of his global worldview, I'll explain later. I think it gives him an advantage to actually have a global mandate as well. Okay.
Grew up in China, right?
Grew up in China. Okay. So I'm going to share some history about his life, but I'll talk about the fun first. So Charlie is the only guy that Charlie gives outside money to. Okay. Only guy. Okay. He doesn't give to anyone else, even though he's close with a lot of other people like Monish Prabhai or all these, right? He is also described as the Chinese Warren Buffett. The fund today, one of Charlie's mandate was that I'm going to give you money, but you have to close your fund. You cannot attract new people already. There's a reason for it also, because it's easier to manage a closed-end fund rather than an open-end fund. Okay. Now, so it's been closed to outside investors from 2004 to 2013, and the beauty of it, it doesn't charge a management fee. So they, I think, share profit lah. So they probably is a certain hurdle rate, and then over and above that hurdle rate, then the profit is shared among. Actually, it's very similar to Buffett's partnership. Buffett's partnership does this thing called a 0-6-25. So zero asset under management fee, hurdle rate is 6. Anything above 6%, 25% profit goes to the fund manager, 75% is kept by the investor. So it's called a 0-6-25 model. Okay. So now Himalaya Capital is the fund that Lilu started, 18.5 billion capital under management, global securities. And it is actually the largest shareholder of Micron. Until today, right? Yeah, Micron Technologies. They do RAM, a lot of RAM, memory.
Wow.
Until today, I still cannot figure out why, Monish is there as well. Lilu is very, very big in Micron. I can't see what they see. Obviously, they are smarter than me, but I can't see what they see. So again, I can copy their ideas, but I can't copy their conviction. So you gotta like suit your own investing style as well. Don't blindly copy. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the interesting, I think when I looked at like his work, right, I feel like, wow, it's actually quite hard to find information about him, like Himalaya Capital. It started actually when he walked into Warren Buffett's lecture, as a student, right? And then that changed his path, the path of his life forever.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found was like he was even a student protester at Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, that's right.
It's crazy, like how many investors we know to have done these kind of things,
Yeah, that's
the
right.
kind of like really far out kind of things,
Yeah.
And then like there was even a time when he was slated to join the team managing Berkshire Hathaway when Warren Buffett retired. Now he's decided not to do that.
Correct.
So the level of trust that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger has for him, but yet he's so under the radar. That's what baffles me. It was like really the first time I was like, wow, Lilu, I was like wondering that does John know about him? And like, oh, you actually do. Yeah, so much to
Yeah.
And in fact, he also has some money in Berkshire. Like
that's right. Himalaya has quite a substantial stake in Berkshire as well. Actually, yeah.
How does that work actually? Like how
So you buy share is you buy it in an open market. Anyway, Berkshire is
Oh,
is
okay,
public
okay.
ma. So you can buy either
Right,
the class
right,
A or
right,
class
right,
B ma.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean, like they have a. I mean, he has this title, right? Chinese Warren Buffett. How similar is his style actually to Warren Buffett?
it's a bit different, and I think it also comes down to his upbringing lah. Because like what you mentioned earlier, he was a protester in the Tiananmen Square, right? Actually, there's a video of him. He was standing in front of the tank.
Oh,
You're going. It's a
oh,
very
he
unknown
was the
video.
guy.
Yeah,
I
he was the
remember.
guy when the tank
I
was moving.
remember
He was the
that.
guy standing there.
I remember there was a guy who he was the guy.
He was the guy. Yeah. So from what I read, he was the guy. Okay. So he
Oh.
was born in Tangshan, China, 1966. He grew up during the Cultural Revolution.
Mhm.
He was a survivor of the earthquake, really changed his perspective about life. He went to Nanjing University to study economics, okay? But in 1989, that's where the Tiananmen Square protest happened. So he became one of the student leaders. But when they cracked down, the People's Republic of the Chinese Communist Party actually cracked down. He actually fled. And here's what was surprising when I first studied about him. His grandfather was actually a Columbia University grad. So his grandfather got his PhD from Columbia University. So obviously there was a choice that he went to as well. So he
Interesting.
went to Columbia, and here's why you can see his intellect really shines. He graduated 1996 with 3 degrees simultaneously.
Wow.
He had an economics degree, an MBA, and a Juris Doctor in law. So can you imagine how difficult these genres of studies are? And he's still like
Wow.
three. It's quite crazy, lah. Yeah.
Wow. He's
Yeah.
like how like and he was I don't think he was that even that old, right? I think he was like in his 20s or late
20s, I think late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. And your earlier question about his style, because he's gone through the cultural revolution, then Americanized, for the lack of a better word, and then turned into from idealist, a student movement into more of a capitalist today. Actually, Charlie Munger had a word for it. He's a capitalist capital. He's a capitalist, something like that. He's like really turned into like, a capitalist,
Wow.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
His style is a little bit more global, but at the same time, he is anchored around value investing. So seeks to invest in companies that are undervalued by the market. He has a very, very long-term perspective. So
How
he always
long is long though? I
oh,
mean
forever, easy 10
forever.
years or more,
Right.
There was this lecture he did in Columbia University. He actually teaches the students how to analyze a company in 5 minutes, the old style way, but at the same time have a long-term view on it. So that's where I think Li Lu got the quality investing or quality businesses concept very early. So like Warren, he has always been, prior to him meeting Charlie, right? He was not willing to pay up for quality. He wanted to buy companies at the cheap, 10 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar. Charlie was the one that opened Warren's mind to say, hey, pay up for quality. And I think Li Lu got that a little bit earlier. Strong competitive advantage. He'll find businesses with sustainable business models and an excellent management team. So here's what I think is a little bit different from Buffett, right? He would actually visit the local church where the CEO of the company he's investing in. And he will speak to his neighbors. So he's not just looking at the financial statements, he's looking very clearly at the character of the people leading the management team. He believes the most important thing in investing is intellectual honesty. Okay, I'm going to pause there.
Okay.
So you can be intellectual, but intellectual honesty also comes to the point where if you are wrong, you have the humility to admit you're wrong. And you have the humility to say that this is outside my circle of competence. Can I find someone else to complement my skills to bring me to the next level? So you're always truth seeking. You're always curious. You're always truth seeking. And you are not you never think that you're the smartest guy in the room. Because the moment you are the smartest guy in the room and that's what you think, then intellectual honesty doesn't happen. I think that's where all great value investors actually share a lot of these traits, to be honest.
Yeah, I think would you just say then, given that I think while Warren Buffett and Li Lu both share like the foundations of value investing, would you say it's like the right title to call him the Asian Warren Buffett? Would it
Yeah,
be-
I think more Chinese Warren Buffett. I think the title was Chinese Warren Buffett more than Asia Warren Buffett.
Oh, Chinese Warren Buffett.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because his expertise, remember you mentioned
Yes,
88
Chinese
million to
Warren.
400 million? 88 million to 400 million,
Mhm.
right? So some of the stocks that actually got him there was actually Chinese listed companies. One of it was Mao Tai, Koi Chai Mao Tai. You know the liquor,
No.
Baijiu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that was one of
It's
Lilu's
also
take.
like one of his advantages, right? Given like his cultural background, I don't think Warren Buffett would have known to invest.
Correct,
Baijiu.
Baijiu, right? And
Okay.
the other one was actually BYD.
Mhm.
And BYD, I would argue it wasn't just Lilu. There were many people. There was another right-hand lieutenant of Warren Buffett, but Warren Buffett fired him because he took advantage of this. So Lilu also introduced Charlie to BYD. And there's another guy called David Sokol, also introduced BYD over to Buffett. But he did something unscrupulous, Louis.
Oh.
He actually front run the what do you call it, the trade. That means he bought BYD before Berkshire Hathaway bought, knowing that Berkshire would buy, but he didn't tell Warren. But
Wow.
whereas in Lilu's case, he already owned BYD. He was upfront to Warren about it and says, "Hey, I already own. This is what I own. Or what? If you want to buy, it's like I already own this. Rather than keeping it in the dark, lah." That's why David Sokol kind of like it was like let go, lah. Because of that, I think Warren wouldn't mind if David told him about it, lah. But David didn't. That was the intellectual. That was also the honesty that I think Warren was looking for, lah. Yeah.
So I could say that like you have to work with him. Like we really like what I was like so surprised, the only outside investor, like you have to have that kind of intellect, the kind of like intellectual honesty that doesn't come by often.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's from a very like high level view of finance, investing. Obviously, most of our listeners and myself, we're all like retail investors. So from Lilu's example, what can everyday investors learn from this?
Very good. I think three things. One is a global perspective. So we are Malaysians. You have a natural advantage of understanding Southeast Asian culture, Malaysian culture, and Malaysian businesses. So Lilu, like what you and I discussed, global perspective. He's been raised in China, understood the Cultural Revolution, understood the economy of China and the businessman thinking, and then planted over to the US, understand capitalist system. So he had a very global perspective. Like for us, play your natural advantage to your strength, because if you have traveled, work elsewhere, and like I have a friend, German university grad, scholar, worked in Germany for a very long time. He understood Tesla very well because the German company he was working for was a supplier to Tesla. So again, he had that perspective.
Advantage.
Correct. That's the competitive. So Lilu had a global perspective. So if you are a Malaysian and you understand the industry well, then use that as your advantage or your perspective. Okay. Second thing, he had a mentor, which was Munger. And when you have a mentor, you shortcut, and this is not a bad shortcut. You shortcut on the things that other experiences people have gone through, and you don't need to like relearn or make the same mistakes that these guys have already made. Right? Hopefully, you shorten your learning curve, and I think that close association with Munger, there's a lot of people that you don't even need to be close to, but you can be your mentor, one Louis. So, like for example, you want Lilu to be your mentor, find videos of him. Free mentorship already. You just read, take notes, right? Or Munger, there's so many books. Like for example, there's one book I haven't recommended, but we'll cover Munger's Poor Charlie's Almanac, which is very, very thick. Okay, get those books, watch videos about Munger. Then indirectly he becomes a mentor. Charlie Munger has a way of getting mentorship. Louis, you know what is his phrase or not? I like to make friends with the eminent dead.
Oh, okay.
So dead people, biography, right? He make friends with them, he buy the books. So that's mentorship. The third one, I think it's social responsibility. Like for Lilu, from what I know and what I've read, okay, obviously I don't know him personally. He is not a flashy guy. He doesn't flash money, live a very simple lifestyle. And he churned that, he channeled all his wealth, a lot of it into social responsibility. I mean, He grew up during the Cultural Revolution. He know how devastating it can be, and he is advocating for value of education in China. You know, he's involved in various charitable organizations. A lot of it is back to, you know, his homeland of China. Even though he's American already, American citizenship, they've inducted him into some Hall of Fame. I can't remember, some business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I guess three things again: global or local perspective, okay, mentorship, and social responsibility. So these are the three things that I think we can learn
Yeah,
from him.
I think it's also like that last part about not being flashy. Maybe that's why we've not heard about him. He's so low key, right?
Yeah.
Like people making billions or being so quiet is what we can take away from this too.
Correct.
Okay, so thanks for sharing about Li Lu. I mean, I've learned so much. But what if we want to learn more about him? What are some resources you would recommend to get to know about Li Lu, get to know him personally, or like a bit about his investing for further reading?
Investing, he's not written much about it except for his you can go to Himalaya Capital, his website. He actually writes letters to shareholders. So if you want to know his investing, his thought process, that's where you can go. But about his life prior to being a capitalist, he actually wrote a book called Moving the Mountain: My Life in China from Cultural Revolution to Tiananmen Square. So I think, so I've not personally read the book before, but I think in his book, I did read a synopsis of saying like how he actually survived the Cultural Revolution, how he actually, why did he fight for the Cultural Revolution? I think that's what you would be able to get from the book. But investing wise, the best is read up his shareholders' letters. I think that's very valuable.
Okay, I'll include that in our show notes so everyone can get there. Okay, so that's about wraps up our first episode of Hidden Investors Among Us. So over to you. How many of you knew Li Lu before this episode? If you have known about him, what are your thoughts about him, his investing style? Comment below. If you've enjoyed this video, do give it a like to help us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to know more about hidden investors, their investing styles, make sure to subscribe to WangHiro because we cover one investor a month. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you again in our next episode. Bye-bye.